Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we get started, are you thinking of creating a podcast or are you a podcast host already? As a podcast strategist, I can help you to launch or relaunch a purposeful and profitable podcast, which will inspire, entertain, and educate a global audience. Simply book in a one-to-one call with me right now via the Calendly link in the show notes, and together we'll focus on the purpose of your podcast. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Clare Foley. Clare, hello.
Good morning, Amy. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Well, the sun is shining. It's a very good sign.
It's glorious, isn't it? It's so nice.
So tell me, what is it that you're focusing on at the moment, Clare?
So I'm focusing on my work as a coach. Typically, I'm helping people who are super busy, and this is absolutely linked to the job that I do still do, actually, but the job that I have mostly done for the last sort of 20 years. And people who are so busy that they're just, running around almost with their hair on fire, and helping them to find a different way.
Now, I've never heard hair on fire, although I have had my hair on fire. So what is it about that analogy that for you just makes sense?
I sort of want to find out your story about when you had your hair on fire, but we'll come back to that. But it is that when you are so busy, it's probably a term that I've picked up from being at work, actually. But that point where you're steadily busy, but then the job that I was doing was very deadline driven, or is very deadline driven. And the point where you get to that deadline and things are just flying at you, and it's just an incredibly busy time. So yeah, it's managing long-term busyness and those peaks of super pressure, I suppose.
Now, busy has become a topic where some people thrive being busy. Some people see it as a badge of honor, even. Other people see it as a route to one thing only, which is burnout. Where do you sit with busy?
For me, it was always a badge of honor. Absolutely. Whenever you ask somebody how they are, the first thing they say is, "Oh, I'm really busy," as if that's the coverall answer for everything. And for a long time, I was super busy. I was that person who took on everything, who was the first person in the office in the morning and the last person to leave at night. Probably not very good at asking for help. Certainly not very good at delegating things. And perhaps not very good with boundaries, actually. And saying, well, when it came to taking on extra work, being almost, I suppose, afraid of saying no to requests to take on something else because of the implication that I felt that no would carry, which is, I can't cope. Maybe that was the message that I felt that would be giving. But having got to the point of certainly being very close to burnout, I knew that I had to find a different way. And going into personal development myself, then finding that different way. Now looking back on that whole busyness and looking, and seeing people in my circle, who I, whether it's friends, for instance, or people I come across in the corporate world, and also obviously people who I'm coaching, who think that being busy means it's kind of some kind of validation of themselves. I think I now look at busyness in a very different way and think it's something of a curse when people say I'm busy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And as you say, it becomes that instant reply It's also an easy reply. It's one where it doesn't require anybody to really delve into the conversation anymore. It's like it's a whole starter and finisher in one. It really is.
Yeah.
And what I want to ask is that shift for you of finding a different way and then acknowledging through personal development that there's a possibility, so much so that now you're coaching that different way. What's happened as a result?
Oh, there's so much actually. Um, Taking the pressure off myself, I think that's first and foremost the first thing that happens, and actually finding space for, or spaciousness, or space for just fun again and joy, and being able to actually be a more authentic version of myself. So that taking the pressure off and all of the masks that come with that. Um, Allows me and allows my clients to be that more authentic version of themselves, which actually is a really nice place to be, because it provides a certain amount of peace, I think. um, and I think that's probably the opposite of that busyness, that peace and calm that comes when you're not forever pushing yourself um, to be that busy person, to always do that extra thing, you know.
And do you think, Claire, that this comes at a certain time of life? Would you have been open to this suggestion sooner or earlier?
That's a good question. I do wonder actually if for women it comes along in that kind of midlife point. So when I look back, maybe there was an element of sort of perimenopause there for me, but I don't think it's just related to women. This situation. I think maybe naturally women get to a point in their lives where they go, well, do you know what? I can't actually do this anymore. You know, they've got a house, they've got kids, they've got a husband or relationship of some sort, and it gets to the point where they go, do you know what? I just can't. I can't. And that can sometimes be the driver that almost forces them to go, well, I have to do something differently, or get to the point where they go pop. Um, but but it's not just a female only issue, because I see this, these behaviours with men as well, because I think the core of it is that there is, you're driving from a place of some kind of limiting belief, and that sounds a bit coachy, and people go, "What on earth are you saying?" But when you start digging into it, what you will find is, although people, and I'm not saying that people don't have busy jobs, because there are busy jobs, people are pushed, I think, to a point where, almost the point where they get to going pop. But when you dig into it, I think you can often find that there are decisions that person has made which have led to an increase, or which have exacerbated that busyness.
How do you know when and where to dig?
Get a good coach.
Let's take it to you. How did you know that it was time for you to go into personal development and start digging?
For me, actually, it wasn't because it wasn't just about being super busy at work. There were some other personal things that were going on. So for me, it was kind of like, well, the one common denominator in all of this, in all of these issues, whether it's me being super busy at work, or having personal issues that were occurring, the common denominator is well, it's me. So so what is it? Is it me? And if it is me, what is it that I'm doing, which is leading to me being, super busy, or taking on roles which are just, crazy ass busy, or or having relationships that were perhaps not really going anywhere, or not being as fulfilling as I would have liked them to be.
Yeah. And you mentioned the masks. What happens when you can take those masks away?
There's an there's a peace and a calm, I think, that comes with that, and I mentioned that before, but those masks where and I think when you're doing it, you don't really realize. I think those behaviours become so ingrained. You know, when you go, it's almost like putting on a suit jacket when you go to work. It's almost like, right, I'm going to work now. This is the work version of me. And then you sort of turn up and almost, you know, your body posture changes, or your language changes, or there's parts of you that you don't talk about at work. And they could be really important parts of your life, but you kind of hide them, or you minimize them. And that's all about sort of masking your real self. But all the time you're having to push things through a filter in order to fit in, or to be what you think is more acceptable to work, then that's super hard work. That's, you know, you're using half of your functioning capacity, if you like, in just sending yourself through a filter every time somebody comes to your desk, asks you a question, sends you an email, every time you respond to something, every time you pick up a piece of work. You know, you're looking at it through not your own eyes, but, you know, this filtered mask, and it's exhausting. It really is exhausting. Because you're just not being your true you. You can't just relax and go, right, this is what I want to do. This is the way I want to do this. It is so tiring to keep this kind of this mask on, this overcoat of what you think you should be, rather than just being yourself, your fully wonderful self. Because ordinarily there is someone amazing underneath there that you're kind of, you know, keeping hidden a little bit.
And the irony is not lost on me, the fact that everyone's doing this. So it's actually ridiculous because we're all doing it. So at what point will we all just say, okay, enough, done. This is crazy. We're all just in this mad world of pretense in terms of keeping the illusion going. And I mean, you're now aware of it. I'm aware of it. We are bringing the more vulnerable selves to the spaces that we work, and we see that difference that it makes in doing so, and how people are actually attracted to that. I can't wait for that day to happen when everybody just goes, relax,
Yeah.
calm, peace, enjoy.
Yeah.
Will it
Yeah.
ever happen, Claire?
Yes, I think it's happening. I do, actually. I think there's, I've got to believe that it will happen. And I think, but each one of us is responsible for that. And I don't mean that everyone has to try to bring about some huge societal change, but because that's a pretty heavy burden to put on your shoulders. But what you can do is you can change your corner of the world. And if you start with being more authentically you, then other people will take their cues from you, and necessarily will feel more comfortable around you, because actually it's just easier to be around you as an individual, because you're being more relaxed. You're not being this, you know, whatever it is, masked up version of you, so that and everyone else kind of relaxes around you. Then it's quite a nice thing to see, actually, I think. Is that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And you say that we're each responsible for that, because change does begin with the individual. So you've caught me in a moment where I'm still in the headspace from last night. I gave my first talk on purpose. And one of the questions that I asked the audience was, what is it that you catch yourself saying somebody really should do something about? And then insert that cause for concern or the desire for change. I'll ask you that question. What is it that you catch yourself saying somebody should really do something about, and then recognize that it should, could, needs to be you?
I like that word vulnerable that you mentioned, actually, because I think that often doesn't come up automatically at work. And maybe being able to be vulnerable, that's is actually a really powerful thing to do. Is that the thing that I want people to do? I think actually what I would like people to do is to give themselves an easier time.
Mm.
And that's directly linked to this whole busyness piece, and also this authenticity, taking away the masks, because when you take away those masks and you are more authentic, and I suppose you're, to use your word, vulnerable, then actually you are giving yourself a much easier time of it, because life just becomes more straightforward. It's a lot more simple. And when you're not in that kind of busyness, that kind of push, that oh my gosh, I've got to do everything because I'm scared of being found out, or I'm going to drop the ball on something, or that it'll be that one thing that I miss, that sort of fear-driven response to everything. When you take that away, then actually life becomes a lot more straightforward. And I think it takes away a lot of the anger, because we do see a lot of anger in society at the moment. And are we angry with everyone else, or are we just angry with ourselves? Big question.
Well, yes. And we have a choice. So you can be angry, and yes, there's lots to be angry about. You also have the choice to affect change and move from fear driven to purpose driven. And that push of almost going against your values, because it's something that you physically have to manifest from somewhere else, because it's not a natural intrinsic motivation. It's not coming from the why. And from that space, coming from the why, which is, where I see you now, it operating from, it's so much more natural and in flow. And as you've spoken about that peace, that calm, it's not difficult when you are naturally doing something that really matters.
Oh, yeah. I think actually when you are being that, when you have that peace and you have that calm, and life is just flowing more organically or more easily, then actually life can be different. And it's almost whether then you find out that maybe you're not doing the job that you always wanted to do, or there is something else out there, or maybe actually you don't need to reinvent your whole life. Maybe actually the job that you're doing is the job that you want to do, but it's an awful lot easier, and you're enjoying it an awful lot more because you're able to do it as your real self, rather than this this fake you, I guess.
I totally agree. And I think that's a really, really important point, that you don't need to reinvent your whole life, that actually you can find meaningful moments in what you're already doing if you're looking for them. Sometimes you just,
Mm,
as you say, you're too busy to even step outside the frame and see what's going on and
mm.
really understand. For you, Claire, how do you see purpose and the why in your life? The purpose being the overarching intention of the direction of your life, and the why being the meaningful significance that you assign to that?
For me, I still think that's one thing, or those two questions are things which I'm still seeking. Actually, I don't think I've got to the real core of either of them, and for me at this point, it's almost doesn't matter. And there's a freedom in that, actually, because taking away that pressure to go, what is it that I want to do when I grow up? It's like, well, maybe it's this, and maybe there will be something else that I want to do as I go along on this journey. But at the, actually finding the joy in every day, that's so super important. And what I see when people are so horribly busy that they're exhausted by Friday night, or sometimes they're even exhausted on a Monday morning, before they've even started the week. Um, but helping people to find the joy in every day, that at the moment, that's the probably the most important thing for me. Helping them to take the pressure off, helping to take away that push, that that pressure that they put themselves under every single day to do more. When actually, if they take themselves out of that situation for a day or a week or a month or whatever it is and go, well, actually, if I'm looking back on my life when I'm 60 or 70 or 80, what is it that I'm going to be thinking, I wish I'd done this differently? What is it that they're going to say, well, I've missed out on, spending time with my kids, or, the joy of just having fun, doing silly things, going for walks, spending time in fresh air, looking at the trees, hearing the birds, whatever that is, whatever it is for you. But bringing some of that joy, bringing that fun back to people's lives, I think that's the most important thing for me at the moment, and just cracking this curse of busyness.
Well, for someone who said I'm still seeking, I can't think of a more empowering purpose to have than helping people to find joy and fun in every day. Because if you crack that, and if people can find meaning in every moment, that is life unlocked in itself,
Ta-da!
from my perspective. I mean, seriously, I've literally to help people find meaning is, and to recognize that there's meaning in everything that they do, and but also, as you say, just take that pressure off to allow that spaciousness that you mentioned right at the beginning. What a beautiful word that is, because of what it represents. That is beautiful, Claire.
Isn't it? Yes, thank you for saying that. It is. And for me, that's been what I suppose I always used to be thinking is that one day when when I've got this money, when I've got this, when I've achieved this, that's when I'll be happy. But but happiness doesn't come at that point. Happiness is what you find in every day, that those everyday joyful moments. And fortune and fame or achievement and all those things, that's what happens alongside the joy and the happiness, rather than, oh, I'm going to once I get to a 2-week holiday in the summer, that's when I'll be able to enjoy myself. um and But you know what, if you are in this place where you're pushing yourself the whole time, even when you do get to that 2-week holiday in the summer, you're still not happy, because you're exhausted, you're stressed out, you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself to have so much fun in these 2 weeks, then it makes up for the whole other 50 weeks of the year when you're miserable. And then, halfway into the holiday, you're dreading going back to work anyway. So it's just it just doesn't work, does it? But finding joy in every single day and taking that pressure off, I think that's the key, I think.
And again, that has been an evolution for you to recognize, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was definitely one of those people who, come Sunday night, I was like, oh God, that sicky feeling in the pit of your stomach, or that dread of, oh God, I've got to go in tomorrow. Or even, thinking, oh, let me get on with some emails now, because now we can do this, right? So we start looking at emails on a Sunday night or a Sunday morning, because you just want to get ahead and you don't want to be caught out Monday morning. Let me do some planning now. I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to do planning. No, definitely not. That's one of the keys to helping you get some managing your workload, but taking away that dread, of, oh gosh, I've got work tomorrow. That was absolutely me, definitely. And the release that you felt on a Friday, oh my gosh, I've got 2 days off, it's amazing. um but again, you put so much pressure on that weekend that, you know saving your life for 2 weeks, 2 days at the end of the week is just no fun at all, really.
And again, you can get swept up, can't you, with this whole version of what other people's lives and aspirations, dreams are, instead of actually checking in on what your own ones are,
Yeah.
and making every moment matter. Essentially, this is not a dress rehearsal. And yet I see so many people living as though they've got 1,000 lifetimes. And yes, it's important to decompress and have time off, but that not to the point of, as you say, checking out. And what you shared has really reminded me of something that Viktor Frankl said. How cool is that? So it was in the in the Will to Meaning, he said, "I have seen the meaning of my life in helping others to see in their lives a meaning."
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. And that's what I recognize in what you said, in terms of understanding the meaning and to see joy and fun in every day. And when we recognize that, when we see that, and that journey to recognizing that, yes, there's going to be pain and suffering, and there's going to be lots of experiences. Again, we get to choose what they all mean. That, they may have meant something in the past, but now we can see how they mean something now different.
Yeah. And maybe there is a connection there with actually getting into that real human experience, because it's not all going to be just joy and fun and sun and roses. There is in human experience there are highs and there are lows, but actually allowing yourself to experience those is super important, because all the time that you're not allowing yourself to feel the lows properly, you're not going to feel the joy either. All the time you're cutting off your emotions and your natural reaction to things, which of course you are going to do, because if you're constantly feeding these masks that you're wearing, you are having to cut off your emotions and all of your sort of decision making capability that you've got in your body, because it's, and all of your intuition and all of your the real parts of you have to sort of cut those off or suppress those in order to be able to just continue to wear that mask. But then you do get to the point where you're ignoring your body when it says, "I'm tired, I need water, I need a rest." But the real the result of that is that you don't have that human experience, like you say, those human lows and those human highs. All of that is lumped in together in that human experience. And each one of those experiences are as important as the next.
And it's often hard to recognize when you're going through something that's difficult, that's tough, that's painful in respect of it is a challenge, to recognize that, again, it's part of the life. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, and I don't even know why that's a phrase, but you know what I mean. But it is. It's, again, I love the expression, the human experience, because when you see it from that perspective, you recognize that there is lots of different elements at play here. You mentioned about the huge societal change that, we're all individually responsible for that shift. If you could wave a magic wand, and I do believe in magic, I really do, what would you like to see happen or make happen?
I'm seeing a lot of anger at the moment in society. People are very angry at each other. And I'm not blaming social media, but I think that doesn't help. I think when people, look at whatever social media app you're talking about, I think that puts pressure on everybody, because you see the best version of somebody's life. There's pictures on holiday or a smiling, group of people, or you just see that snapshot of the good bits. You don't see the snapshot of the bad bits, and I think actually that puts pressure on us to almost to beat yourself up about where you are in your life. But I think social media and perhaps the press as well, and the 24-hour news cycle that we see or, that has developed as a result of having the internet and social media as well. I think that's creating an awful lot of anger. What I would take away is that anger that we see, that how quick everyone is to go, right, okay, well, someone's made a mistake, therefore we need to take that person out of their job, or we need a change of government, or this person needs to lose their job, or this person needs to be held accountable for this mistake which happened either on their watch or happened 5 years ago, or whatever it is. So I'm seeing an awful lot of anger at the moment. And if I can wave a magic wand and take that anger away so that we're not so, so the knee-jerk reactions weren't there. That's what I would take away from society as a whole.
It's a really valid point in terms of it doesn't set a great precedent for understanding from a child's perspective. If you make a mistake, that's it, game over. That you are not allowed to fail, essentially. And yes, there are some roles where it's important that you're leading, but sometimes the mistakes are made. And if there was a society where, as you say, we don't jump to conclusions, we're not expecting perfection, and if we could allow for growth through failure, I mean, there are industries that thrive on that. So the science and the evolution of tech, it does rely on feedback from failure. If you look at Dyson, for example, so many iterations to get to an actual version that comes to market, and learning from all those mistakes. And there's a great book called Black Box Thinking, which is exactly that, listening to what happened from the black box and understanding how we can then make changes going forward to make things better.
Mm.
And that approach of learning and developing and growing as you echo into the human experience, that's what we do on an individual role, and essentially we are just individuals who are learning and growing. We don't have all the answers. And yeah, as a society, it's that whole not good enough, off you go, done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I watched the film about Steve Jobs' life. I've actually got his autobiography, but I've not actually read it yet. It's huge. But what I didn't realise until I watched the film is that there was an awful lot of failure in his life. But when I think of Steve Jobs, I just think of this person who was entirely successful. But there was an awful lot of failure along the way before he got to being able to produce the kit that we use every single day now. And so I think it's really important to remember that failure is a key part of being successful, like you say. And when we hold everyone to account to try and be perfect the whole time, a lot of the time when we're thinking about ourselves, we're aiming for perfection, and that's just so hard, isn't it? I mean, who's perfect? Nobody is. The thing is, nobody is perfect. And if we're looking for some, leaders to be perfect, then of course we're always going to be disappointed.
Nobody's perfect is probably one of the best lines to the end of a film called Some Like It Hot. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's genius. Nobody's perfect. And remembering that if we're trying to emulate, not from a comparison perspective, but if we admire somebody and we aspire to being someone, remember that we're emulating the finished result, not their humble beginnings. And as you just said, Steve Jobs, we see those final iterations of his life. And also we see what happened as a result of, the intensity that he put into that. And I'm not saying that he got ill because of that, but there are lots of things that happened to him that he shared that he would have changed, he would have done differently. And this is where I come back to that point of, are you making every moment matter? Are you really recognizing and finding more joy and fun in your life? And yes, you are, and you're helping other people do it, Claire. So thank you for sharing your your version as it is right now of your purpose and your focus on why. And absolutely, it will evolve. And yeah, it is our life's work to continue that evolution as we grow and learn and expand with the spaciousness that you've now given yourself. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Amy.
How would people get in contact with you, Claire?
Best way to get in contact with me is actually through LinkedIn. So look me up on there. I'd be happy to connect. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with as many people as would like to. It'd be great to catch up.
Brilliant. Well, in the show notes is Claire's LinkedIn profile. So thank you. Do you have some final words, please?
I think I liked where we ended up there. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. And it's okay to fail along the way and to give yourself an easier time of everything and just to enjoy life is enjoy every single day where you can.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What value have you received from tuning in? What are your reflections with actions? Please take a moment to leave me an Apple Podcast or Spotify review sharing how Focus on Why has made a difference to you today. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. To keep it going, simply connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, or join the Focus on Why Facebook group. All the links are in the show notes. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.